Is the EU wanting to become a totalitarian state? Some people on the inside certainly think so. In the EU, when it comes to foreign policy, each member state has the right to veto a proposition and thus not allow a decision to be made on that subject, on that particular point. This is done only for the purpose to guarantee that everybody is on board with the decision. An abstention or absent vote is not enough. It has to be a veto.
Mm.
So Brussels recently was trying to circumvent veto votes to pass certain proposals. The country who vetoed, Slovakia and Hungary, who didn't agree with the EU's approach to the Ukraine conflict. The EU is wanting to settle for a majority voting, which basically would castrate individual nations, especially the smaller, weaker ones. In the case of Slovakia and Hungary, they are against further sanctions on Russia, as it would directly damage their individual nations. They don't have the same economic cushion as, say, Germany, Belgium, or France. That's if further sanctions on Russia were imposed, of
Mm.
course.
Yeah.
Slovak Prime Minister Roberto Fico said the imposition, I'm reading this now, the
Yeah.
imposition of a mandatory political opinion, the abolition of the veto, the punishment of the sovereign and the brave, the new Iron Curtain, the preference for war over peace. This is the end of the common European project.
Yeah.
This is departure from democracy.
Mm.
This is a precursor of a huge military conflict. So it seems if push comes to shove, we know which side of the fence Slovakia and Hungary are stood. In other news, of course, yesterday, President Trump had a telephone conversation with Vladimir Putin. It seems that Mr. Putin is not very pleased with the Ukraine attack on his nuclear force, and he made it plain clear that there will be retaliation. So people in that neck of the woods should brace themselves because I don't think it will be a modest reprisal by Putin. And that the attack started this morning, by the way. The,
Yeah.
the reply from Russia started this morning.
Yeah, I heard things. I've not read the whole report because yeah, it's a bit tragic, and I was busy. I was working this morning and had to be in the right frame of mind for a couple of things.
But I wake up at 5 o'clock just to get these sort of things.
Yeah, yeah. I wake up at 5 or 6 o'clock to actually start working and do teach. Yeah, but okay, um, okay. Now, in 2016, there was obviously a referendum in the UK, and this is one of the reasons I voted against or to leave the European Union, for the UK to leave the European Union. Yeah. Um, as I've always said, it was a choice between head and heart. And yeah, I used my head on this one because I could see where the UK was going. Um, it is the nature of it, from what I can always been able to see, and this is going back to the 80s when I studied it at school, was for a small group of politicians to command the whole of Europe. And this is when it was still called the European Economic Community, EEC. Okay. Um, now, I saw this, and I was a 14-year-old, and I saw all this. Yeah, and I'm not particularly intelligent. Yeah. Um, and now on reflection, I was right. Um, when the EU, European Community, was just a trading bloc, yeah, great, cut through the red tape and everything else. Yeah, I've always seen the EC as a potential problem with as being totalitarian. Um, and
EU, you mean?
the EU, sorry, yeah, the EU has been a potentially totalitarian organisation, and I think successfully or over the years you've seen it built into that way. that more and more we've given up our sovereign rights. This, what they're pushing for now, is the last stage. You've got to remember, Hungary's a relatively new member, as is Slovakia. And they are looking after their interests, and they've got reasonably successful economies, as well. But like you say, they don't have the buffer. Germany, we're talking about being in recession. It doesn't mean they don't have any money, but they've got a buffer. If they could probably buy themselves out of recession and have nothing left in the tank, as it were. The same with the UK. This is how our developed economies operate. But yeah, I mean, Hungary are seen as the bad boys at the moment because they're not complying with anything that the EU want. Slovakia's looking over the fence at the neighbours, what's going on over there. And you've got to remember it geographically, these countries don't want, okay, they have an historical bad blood with the Russians, but they certainly don't want to become Russian enemies again. They understand the implications. I mean, let's just say, for instance, that, well, let's be honest, with regards to Ukraine, Russia are going to be successful in the initial objective of getting the Donbass and the Crimea. Yeah. Where I know they're attacking other places, it's reprisals. Now, I actually heard an expression yesterday, and that's what I said before in a video about traditionally Russians. They're slow to harness, but fast on the gallop. When they get their harness on and ready to go, the Russians can do almost anything. Okay, they didn't achieve in Afghanistan, but yeah, nobody's ever achieved in Afghanistan. They've got a slightly different theatre at the moment. The Russians have now got their organisation, the logistics all sorted out. They are very, very capable in probably the way that the people across Europe are not being told. When you leave Europe, and we do have access to news sources that are banned or suspended or very difficult to get hold of in the UK. You know that as well as I do, Steve. Yeah, and we see some things sometimes, and you're thinking, well, that makes perfect sense to me. Yeah. Russia is not a spent force. I'm not saying Putin's a good guy or anything else, but he is a level-headed, and he's an ultimate cold warrior.
Pragmatic.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, okay. Invading a country, but pragmatic. Yeah. People who want regime change in Russia.
That's what the objective is, right?
Yeah.
That's what he wants. That's what he's going to do.
I mean, as I've sort of said, slow to harness. His military has been slow to harness. That his military people have let him down. Has he got rid of them? Yeah. He's putting some harder people around him. I'm not cheering him on. Anyone who accuses me of that, I'm not cheering him on. I just want the killing to stop. Yeah. I want the discussions in Turkey to be productive. Both sides are at the traditional place of we're here and they're there. Okay, there's a big chasm. Yeah. Meanwhile, there's people still dying on the ground from both sides. Yeah.
Yep.
Now, and okay. I'm going to be quite honest here. The Russians have the ability to take the whole of Ukraine now, and you're giving them an excuse. Yeah. Because officially they'll see themselves at war with the whole of Ukraine.
Yeah. But
I'm not saying they will. I'm saying I'm doing.
Like I said, I want about the EU.
Yeah, I'll get. Yeah, I'll wind to that. Yeah, they also have the ability to cause havoc in the EU. I'm not saying they're going to start slinging the hot fireworks at this point, because I don't think Putin will.
I don't think they will. I think that what's going to happen is that Russia's going to refuse to trade with the EU.
Yeah.
And then the EU is going to find themselves having to spend a lot of false economy.
Yeah.
Spend more than they have to get the basics to make their economy thrive, and it's going to cost them an awful lot of money.
But this is what the leadership of Hungary and Slovakia understand. about
Oh,
Russian mentality.
there you are.
They seem to have. I mean, always thought that was highlighted, like him or dislike him. The 47th president, when he was the 45th president of the US, stating it and being laughed at. I'll say he understood what the Russians are capable of. And I have mixed with Eastern Europeans, and let's just say a lot of them still have a very healthy respect for Russia. When I say respect, I mean that in a very sarcastic term, a fear.
Oh,
Yeah,
the bear.
yeah, they understand what's capable, and we haven't learned over many, many years. At the moment, the Russians are showing restraint. You've now given them an excuse to do something, and in the Russian mind, the reprisals will be very, very justified. They see, and when Putin says it, a special operation, that's exactly what he thinks that the thing in Ukraine is a special operation. Yeah. Um, he is preparing, ramping up for something that is much bigger. Now, I don't know what that is. Yeah. I mean, he's
Well,
given, yeah,
I, I'm once again, I'm trying to concentrate on this veto, trying to get
yeah,
rid of this
yeah,
veto in
yeah. But
Europe.
yeah,
What's
sorry.
going to happen? It's going to piss off an awful lot of people,
Mm.
especially those that don't have as much pulling power as the others.
Well, yeah. I mean,
And that's like this guy, like this guy from Slovakia said. It's going to be the beginning of the end. There's going to be
well,
no more.
I think when Farage said that your European project is finished and you're in denial. He said that a few years
No,
ago. I seem to
no,
remember him saying it.
yeah,
I don't
yes, it
think
is.
I don't think it's a false memory.
No,
Um, and I think he was right in its
yeah,
current form, and it is heading down. And the only way it can the only way it can survive, it's almost like the George Orwell thing of they do it through looking nice and everything else, and then when the people begin to wake up and realize things are not nice and good, all they've got is fear and aggression left. I'm paraphrasing here. I can't remember what the actual phrase was, but yeah.
that's
Um,
that's just ask survival Lily.
well, yeah. I mean, yeah, she's. I don't watch her again in the mornings because I think
She's
she's a bit too depressing. Yeah.
she's my go-to girl for all things German,
Well, yeah. Okay. Yeah.
for all things
I do. I mean, I think she might be right. Yeah,
yeah.
when she holds the phone round. But yeah, sorry, Lily. No disrespect to you, but I do find you a bit depressing to listen to in the morning. Yeah, but even if you are right, you're living on the ground, and you've got a good. She's got a good certainly. It'd be interesting to have her on this podcast if she wants to come on here, if she sees us. Yeah. Um.
She's in a different league. She's way up there.
Well, but Steve would like to have a conversation with you. Yeah.
I'd love to chat with her. Yeah,
Yeah.
um,
All the right reason. Yeah. All the right reasons. But yeah,
but
it's yeah.
respect.
Respectfully, yeah. But she's a yeah, I mean she's interesting. She's bright, she's intelligent. But yeah. But again, she's saying as it is, it's a tough break at the moment for anyone living across Europe and a very worrying time. Um I I don't know where the EU is going to go. It could be that Hungary, Slovakia could be leading a charge away from it and form their own little group of former Eastern European countries.
Might be they might be following in the UK's footsteps.
Yeah, I mean, um, there isn't a common love across Eastern Europe with each other. I mean, they're still very, very independent thinking nations because they know what it's like to be part of a collective. Yeah.
Well, with each other, it's not all that important. It's with the
Mm.
EU. It's with the
Mm.
Northern Europe and the Southern Europe.
Yeah.
I just think if I was them, I'd pull out and rely on my own uh, abilities to create a good
Well,
economy.
there probably is part of their economies have been grown with membership of the EU, and this gets pointed out to them. Um, But I think the Polish have got the ingenuity to build their own things. Maybe the Hungarians, don't forget, the Hungarians were always considered a slightly different breed across Eastern Europe. Um, if you talk to Eastern Europeans, they're like the Frenchmen of Europe. Yeah, of Eastern Europe, sorry. Eastern Europe. Yeah.
Nobody likes the French.
Well, that's it. I mean, the Hungarians are seen as the same. Everybody jokes about, but the Hungarians, when it was needed, a little bit like the French, would protest and stand up to what they thought was inequality.